Good day, folks. I'm just doing some updates here, building some PEG power cells, a new kind here, a bigger one, hopefully. And I've got my dad here helping out, and we're building power cells. So I found a aluminum pipe, so he's helping me with that. And that's going to be the anode. So we're going to cut that and clean it up. So I got the PEG mix, and we're going to mix that. I got some glue for the base. I'm going to try this again, but properly. So that's what we're working on. So that's my dad, by the way, everyone. So hopefully this one's going to work better, and I will keep you all posted on that. And hopefully we could use this one as an DC loop isolator as well, like I've been demonstrating in the latest videos I've been uploading. So I'm just trying to get a bit more of a powerful cell so I can have more current displacement, because the current comes from the electrostatic, and the potential, the push, comes from the series regular cells or whatever. So we're polishing the rod. Make sure that there's a good contact on the electrodes. So this was a recycled aluminum. So now we're just cleaning it up. Hopefully that will make a good contact for the center rod of the cell. So this is really grinding into it to make sure the contact is good all over. Stuff that I was not able to do at home. It's looking very shiny. So now we're doing really good. It's all nice and shiny, all polished. There's a contact. Just getting it all ready. And we're almost good to go. So I'm going to build the cell eventually. So now I'm just trying to find a way to cap it here and glue the cap in place. So we're going to try and glue that into the cell. And yeah, take it from there so the material, the electrolyte, doesn't spill over while it hardens. I was having issues with the other one here that was leaking, so we're going to use better glue here. So he's just getting all that set up right now, and we're going to do that. And then after, I've got the anode over here. I got a little base here drying in the glue here to give it a little base and some spacing. I polished the aluminum anode, so hopefully that's going to work. And I took the voltage readings here while the conductivity, continuity, and it's working pretty good. I get a beep. So if I touch this one here, I get my beep. It's pretty good. So we're going to take it from here. Just making sure my thing is straight here, because I'm trying to glue a base on there so that it gives me a bit of a spacer once I get it in the cell, so it doesn't short. That's the glue there in the bottom on the plastic cap. So I think that looks pretty straight there. All right. So we're going to take it from here. So now the cell is glued and well packed and is tight, airtight. I tested it. So that's doing well. And he's going to help me polish the inside more for better conductivity, because that's very important with this kind of these kind of cells. So we're just looking for that now. And over here, I just had a bit of water to test my electrodes to make sure that there was a reaction for the potential. And here is my thing. My anode is still drying. I got a little cap here. So that's what we're working on now.
Comment c'est facile.
Yeah.
C'est une imaging, ça.
That's a chainsaw thing.
File. A chainsaw file.
That does the job. So now we're going to polish. That's going to ensure I get a good contact. So that would be the plus.
Okay.
Like my dad decided to give me a gift, a vise, so I could work with some of these projects at home easier.
Je vais vous l'attaquer une petite.
Alright, so now I got the pipe, one of them glued on the base here so it can keep the cell in place. And I'm running out of this stuff here. This, by the way, is the main ingredient of the PEG cell, for those that are wondering what it is. If they haven't seen it by now, this is what I use. But I'm running low, so we're gonna go uptown and get some more at the pharmacy. And I'm gonna do my mix as usual with the gel beads, with this with a little bit of heat. And we're gonna apply this in the tube here and put our central rod and hope for the best that this is all going to work. So to give you an idea of the size here, I'm going to try and go a little bit further away. So it's pretty half decent size. And the base seems pretty good. So we're going to take it from there. So this is the cell completed. So it's working pretty good. And I've got it, tried it with the series DC with these two 9-volt dead batteries here. And here's a 12-volt battery, and I've been running this for a while now, and it seems to be charging up. I started at about 11.6, so it's been about an hour now. So it's kind of hard to believe, but it seems to be slowly but surely charging this dead battery here. So really interesting. I've been monitoring this to see if just on its own, if it's going to do the job. So very interesting stuff. So I'm going to have to say another success, but I'm still not really satisfied with the voltage output with just the copper and aluminum. So I'm looking online for like conductive carbon rods and maybe magnesium tubing of some sort and go back to that composition. But other than that, same peg. So nothing fancy to that. So this is pretty interesting. So just keeping everyone up to date with what I'm doing. So I'm just outside here because I'm actually running out of space for all my projects. So here I am doing this outside. Lab space number 2, I guess. So that's the cell doing the what it does. And of course, you know, for those wondering, I always say go to my previous videos, but this here, no continuity, no high resistance, no nothing. This breaks the loop completely. series configuration into the cell and very straight output into the battery. So it's doing something, and we'll see what it does, and we'll keep monitoring it to see if anything significant happens here. But so far so good. A slow charge that goes up about 100 MVs per hour, and we'll stop it at that. Good day, folks. I'd like to reveal to you one of the quote-unquote big secrets of the PEG cell, which will probably explain once and for all what is happening here. One person sort of let it slip, and we talked about it in comments, but I'd like to demonstrate the effect to show you folks exactly that it's actually happening, okay? So here's one of my earlier PEG cells with PEG mixed with only the copper oxide, one of my very early cells that's really, really rock hard. It's like almost 3 months old. So basically it's a carbon felt, which is the plus, and the negative is the thin plate, okay, because it didn't have magnesium. So here's my meter on negative and positive. Not quite as high a potential as using the magnesium, but enough to create a potential, right, of about 0.5 volt here. So now, of course, we set up the series configuration, you know, plus and minus, plus and minus. But in this case, for the demonstration, I'm using a bank of supercapacitors. So my negative is here and my positive is here. So they're pre-charged to around 12 volts. And they're simulating one of the series cells. So the PEG cell in series with the capacitor cell, and one output on the capacitor and the other one on the cell, and that adds up the potential voltages without closing the loop. But people were trying to figure out how that was happening in the electrostatic domain, and we were talking about that, about polarity inversions. And even though it's electrostatic, it's very, very quite pronounced in here, okay? So what happens is, you see, I have 0.51 volts, but what's going to happen is when I'm going to complete the loop here, because right now I don't have anything, it's basically off. I have the my meter here connected to it, which is my load box, but I don't have it actually connected yet, okay? So what's going to happen is, actually I do, it's right here. I'm sorry about that, because it's the output, which is the motor and the load. So right now I have it as off, but as soon as I'm going to load it, it's going to complete, you know, it's going to try to anyways complete the loop through the load, okay? So now we're going to observe what's going to happen directly at the cell. What's very interesting is there's going to be a sudden flip of polarity and a big increase in potential, okay? Now in the original plus and minus device configuration, what's really, really odd is it inverts. It goes, all of a sudden when I load it, it'll go -6, -5. So that's very unusual. So of course, the dummy I am, I said, okay, if that's what happens in an inversion of polarity, I'm just going to flip the cell and see what happens. So I'm going to feed the plus of the cell to the plus in series. It's totally not the traditional right way of doing it, but in these these different systems, it really works well, because now all of a sudden, by inverting you know what I'm saying, going to plus when you go in through the load, this still flips, but then it goes plus. So then you have the natural potential of the cell plus what's happening gives it a boost, and it adds up to the series, giving you an even more potential. Now I was getting confused with this, and when I turned it on, I also tried the continuity, and there was no measurable resistance, and I put it on diode mode, which is really interesting. And when I put power through it, well, try to feed current through the plus and minus of the cell, all of a sudden it opens the almost perfect, the meter reads a perfect, almost perfect of 1.2 ohms. And all of a sudden it appears to be a path. And then I'm testing this, but yet it's very traditional at 1.2 ohms and almost a dead short. The batteries would close the loop, it would get hot, there wouldn't be any of that, but yet it's going good and there's charging up instead. So this is when I noticed, because of the inversion, it's actually negative resistance. So it's very unique. Here's what I'm trying to get at is these cells are actually a nonlinear ferroelectric response with negative resistance value to it, that when you feed a little bit of current, what I'm getting at is it goes basically negative 1.5 ohms, and all of a sudden goes up in potential instead of down, and contributes to the circuit and allows a one-way path at very low resistance, so to speak. So essentially what it's doing is it's also acting as a kind of hybrid tunnel diode, so with negative resistance properties. So this is really big, because what I'm getting at is if you were to run this as a closed loop, and once the cell operates in this mode with current, you could put in an additional system like an ambient antenna harvester and put that as an input and as its own isolated system through the cell while it's active, and you're going to have a negative resistor of negative 1.5 ohms that's going to amplify that energy. You see what I'm getting at? This is very, very big stuff here. So anyways, instead of talking, I'm going to show you. I'm going to load my box here, so I'm going to give it a load, because this motor here won't obviously spin because it's not a high current thing, but it's going to load it. So we're going to put the motor on there. So now we're loading it, and look what happened here. Minus the polarity completely flipped, and all of a sudden the cell's got a really high potential. So what I've done now is this one here is connected at the output, and it's going to read, it flashed at like 18 there, but it goes over the range actually. So what I'm trying to show you is, I'll see for a moment. There 19, it goes out of range at 20 volts. All of a sudden the two, this one here is charging at almost, well, not charged, but it amplifies its natural potential to plus 12, plus 12, and they combine, and all of a sudden they're like over 24 volts, and it keeps amplifying and getting higher and higher and higher up, and the cell keeps providing more and more potential and provides the load with that energy. So that in part is very interesting what this is doing, and this could really be utilized, because now it means this thing can self-oscillate. It can not only self-oscillate, but be a self-oscillating amplifier. It could introduce additional energy inputs from the environment and actually amplify them at around minus 1.5 ohms. So any minimal losses, even at the electrostatic, because of course you need a little bit of energy to create the initial dipole alignment. So in theory, yes, even though you might not be able to measure it, it does take a certain amount of trigger even at the electrostatic level. There's no doubt about that. It's no free lunch, obviously, but we can be very efficient with it, folks. And if this, this means a lot. So with that said, I hope it explains what's going on with the cell and what it's capable of. Basically a nonlinear ferroelectric negative resistor with tunnel diode-like properties that could be used once energized to amplify another isolated energy input source. You're adding like a negative 1.5 ohms to the system. So I'll just let that sizzle in your minds for a while, and I'm sure you could all come up with very creative ideas from this point on.